John DeMartini, and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned, because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, everybody, welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. We have a great show for you today. The Way of Abundance and Joy. Shirley Blancke is joining me here today. The Shamanic Teachings of Alberto Taxo. But what today is about, Don Alberto. But what today is about a message that we all can be reminded of. And, you know, what happens when you step out and you have an experience, right? And you meet someone that unexpectedly becomes transformative in your life, or maybe expectedly. But what happens when you then decide that you are on a pathway that helps you shift and change not only your own life, but others? And if you study shamanic traditions like my very special guest Shirley has done, and you understand about the sacred dances of the ancient kahunas in Hawaii, or you study with Hank Wasselman, or any of or all of the above, then what happens is a message gets crafted for the world. And whether that message is a message that helps us understand how to bring more light into the world, or how to cultivate life in your own life. That's what today's show is about. The Way of Abundance and Joy. Many of you may be asking yourselves right now, is that even possible? Is that even possible? Well, I'm going to leave that up to Shirley. Shirley, it's great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Pat, and I'm glad to be invited.
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking these days abundance and joy and all of the above. I'm an optimist, so I think I popped out of the womb like with a big O on my face, like a big optimist. But even with that, we run into times where if we have had experiences, especially experiences of the land and experiences that are sacred in nature, they teach us even more than we can imagine, especially through the tough times. Has that been true for you?
Yes, I would say so, definitely. And, you know, as a child growing up in England, I was on my grandparents' farm. I was roaming the fields and the woods, and I felt very connected to nature and knew what was around me and the animals and the plants. And then I came to this country as a young adult and realized I didn't know anything about my environment. And I tried to fill that in by learning the names of things out of books, realized that wasn't going to do any good. And so then, you know, I felt really a sense of alienation and loss. And it wasn't until I met Don Alberto and started to try and practice some of his teachings that I gained this sense of belonging again, or I should say belonging perhaps for the first time in this particular environment. And it has the effect of raising your spirits. I mean, I think many of us know if we walk in the woods, you know, it makes us feel perhaps a lot better than we were feeling before. So this is that kind of feeling, but in spades, because it's something that you can do for yourself and which helps you along that path.
Yeah, and the reason I bring this up is because, you know, I was recently, I've started to talk a little bit more about, okay, what I'm trying to do for myself and what I am doing for myself, I'm reminding myself of the very special moments in my life that have literally shown me a different trajectory. And the reason I love to talk about that is I was really struck by many, many things in the book. But what I'm really struck by today in the world, and one of the messages is we are at choice points all the time. You know, I could talk about my experience in the desert to 5 different people and describe it in detail. And some people will walk away and think, you got to be kidding me. You spent 10 days in the desert with just water, nothing to sleep in, on the ground, no bug spray, and you're happy, right? And what I realized today is that all of that is true. And it was perfect for me in my life. And that's why I'm so struck by your message, because your message right now is perfect for so many in life. So many people want to know this way, Shirley. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, and I think so. And I just would like to add to that what Don Alberto was teaching most recently. And, you know, before we reach this really dark period we're in now, was that it's very important to be able to know how to raise your own energy level. And you can do that by thinking about the happy times, the good times you've had, or looking at photographs and getting yourself, you know, raising your mood in that way. And then to project outwards a feeling of love to as far as you can into the world, you know, people you like or people you don't like. So, and he said the world really needs it at this point.
Yeah. Let's talk for a minute about the journey that got you here. And it's so important to talk about it because, you know, this is one of these things that when people hear the story of the conversation, the meeting, the influence of Don Alberto, you know, it's hard to describe the serendipity of it all and the rightness of it all and the timing of it all. Yeah. How would you describe your journey from there to being here and talking about the book?
Well, that's a long story.
Yes, go ahead. Do it.
Well, I mean, I had studied shamanism as an anthropologist for many years. I just read about it. And then I began to think, well, do I want to get into this myself? And I took a weekend course with Michael Harner. This was in the 80s. And, you know, it was some very interesting things happened, but I wasn't sure it was really for me. And so anyway, it just went along like that. And then I was in a sacred dance group, and we would give programs, you know, in nursing homes, in prisons, even in a monastery. And we were part of something that was called the Sacred Dance Guild, which is actually an international organization now. So they have festivals every so often in different places. And we went to one in Hawaii. And that was where I took a class with a Hawaiian kahuna. And it was actually in male style hula, which is stronger. It's not the kind of willowy thing we think of with hula. So I found that having 4 hours of dancing a day, 4 days in a row, put me into an altered state. And at night, what was happening? So I was on a high during the day, and at night, I found something else was happening, that I was getting in touch with the grief I had from about a Native American friend having died some years before. I'd never really connected with properly. So I was on this roller coaster going up and down. And then spending a couple of weeks in Hawaii afterwards, I was hearing this sweet guitar music. And it was when I went back later and didn't hear anything, I thought, well, this was inside my head. So anyway, I was telling this experience to a friend, and she said, "Oh, I know just the book for you. It's Hank Wasselman's Spirit Walker," right? So I read it, and I found that Hank had a number of what I felt were convergences with his life and mine. He was a paleoanthropologist who studied in Africa, the early man. He really very much liked the American Museum of Natural History. He grew up in New York, and I had worked there for several years. So anyway, I thought, well, maybe this is the man to be my teacher. And I wrote him a long email, and I thought either he'll answer it or he won't. And he answered it very carefully, paragraph by paragraph, and then suggested maybe I would like to take a course of his. So I ended up studying with him for 10 years. And at the end of that time, he said to me, or he asked me if I would try to write a book about the wisdom of a Native American sage. That time, I didn't see any way of doing it. But a few years later, this is when I encountered Don Alberto. And I had not listened to a Native person speak in some time. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, there's going to be this Native American Ecuadorian medicine man speaking just 15 minutes from your home. Maybe you'd like to go." So wow. I said, "Sure." All right. So, it was a very hot June evening. I almost didn't leave the house, but I got myself out. And on the way there, I found myself feeling excited and a bit nervous. And I thought, why on earth am I feeling this way? I don't know anything about this man. What is the point? Anyway, I got there, and he was giving really an introductory course in shamanic journeying. I don't know if your listeners know what that is. Should I explain that?
The listeners are a little bit aware, but I'd like them to hear it from your perspective, because I gave a version of it the other day from my experience in the high desert. But this is very powerful, and I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
Right. Well, the way I see it is that it's a method of reaching your higher intelligence, or your dream world that you might otherwise only reach in sleep. So it's a way of getting to the place where your creative ideas come from. And really, it's just sort of an inspirational place. You can get a lot of very valuable information from it.
Yeah. Do you consider it? Do you consider it, Shirley, if I may interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah.
Do you consider it like, I don't know another word except to put it in like sort of this pop culture phrase, a sneak peek?
A what? A sneak peek?
A sneak peek. Like you're getting a peek into the possibilities. You're seeing something, yes, right, in this state that maybe you're not experiencing in the present world of your life.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I think that's good. I mean, I'm thinking that, this is a place that artists make a lot of use of, but also scientists yes, and mathematicians. It's where their ideas come from, and then they have to use their training to demonstrate that it has validity in this ordinary everyday world. So, yes. And the method that's usually used that I think is the safest is drumming and singing. What it does, it changes your brain waves.
Yeah.
So you reach this other place, right?
Yeah.
So shall I go back to my story?
Well, yes, go back to your story, because your story, when I think about it, and certainly the way you've written about it in the book, is so insightful. There's so much in the book. It really is. I went and reread The Medicine Wheel of the Four Winds several times before the show today. And what I've learned over in my lifetime is when I read something more than once, there's something there for me to learn about it. But, your story is more than insightful. I mean, it is a story where you were tapped on the shoulder and called, from my
Yes.
opinion. You
Yeah.
Great career. Not saying anthropology wasn't all about what it is, but sometimes we get tapped on the shoulder to do something.
Yes.
And
right.
that's what I think happened to you. Maybe it wasn't like a tap on the shoulder. I know for me, it was a 2x4. So it was a little bit more than a tap on the shoulder. But for you, there was a calling. You were told you were a healer. And I can only imagine, people that are watching this, they see you and me. And they may not realize that every one of them here today has the potentiality to experience what you have in this book.
Yeah.
That's why I've been doing this 20 years, because I want to get the message to people. Look, whatever you're going through, there is a way. And so please finish your story, because my words are you were tapped on the shoulder. I don't know if you feel like tapped on the shoulder is it, but it was literally tag, you're it.
Yes. Yes, I think so. And, I've been looking, actually, you're saying about rereading things. I don't know. Well, I think I'm going to mention this. I don't know if you know, but Don Alberto actually died of COVID 1 week before the book was published.
Yeah.
But since then, I had this feeling that I should reread Michael Newton's books on Between Lives. That he was a hypnotherapist and who described the spirit world from what he learned from his patients. So in reading, I started to reread it, and I'm learning all kinds of things about who I think Don Alberto really was. I think he was a soul guide. And one of the characteristics, or the characteristics of soul guides that Newton mentions, is that they are supportive, they boost your confidence, but they also throw you challenges so that you do things that you don't think you're able to do. I mean, it draws on your abilities that perhaps you haven't used up to that point. So I feel that's really, really definitely what happened here. I mean, I never thought of writing a book about him, but this is what happened, right? And now, I think maybe at this point that our work together was finished, basically. Excuse me, I have to drink.
Yeah. And, this is really part of this journey, and really speaking and hearing this from you. I mean, there's a powerful, powerful message in here. And the way I like to look at this, there's so many ways I can look at this. And I want to thank our friends at Inner Traditions and Manzanita. Thank you so much for putting this in front of us, because I love this, the way of abundance and joy, the way of abundance and joy. And when we hear those words, right, I want people to know that there is a way. And I think that is one of the messages in your book, and just in honoring Don Alberto. I mean, it's so sad when I think about, his passing, but yet everything was passed on to you, and you are here to represent now the energy to bring forward in this. I'd like to know what your vision was when you said yes to this, right? And you sat down and said, I'm going to do it. Has your vision changed? And basically the question is, how did writing the book change you, so to speak?
Yes, I'm not sure if it was the writing of the book or really trying to practice what he taught me in relating to the natural world in a closer level. But well, should I tell the story about the dream that
Yes.
led me to? Okay, all right.
Please.
So, well, I went with my family to the east coast of Mexico, the Mayan Riviera. This was after a rather miserable New England winter. And so being in that warm environment, beautiful warm water, very relaxing. I had a very interesting dream, and I don't usually dream very much, or at least I don't recall my dreams. And when I do, I usually think it's about anxiety. But anyway, this was very different. And it happened a little bit before, it was time to wake up anyway. So what I saw was I was standing in the mouth of a cave, and I was looking out onto a sunny landscape. And in the distance, above the horizon, I saw a black form rising as a bird. And as it came close towards me, it got larger and larger until its wings really covered the whole sky and blocked out the light. Wow. And I saw it was an eagle.
Wow.
And then it landed just in front of me. And at that point, I saw it had the face of a Native American lady I knew. Then what happened was there was a ballpoint pen that sprouted little wings, and it fluttered backwards and forwards in front of us like this. And the eagle laughed, and she said, "Oh, now we know why you write so well. You have a magic pen." And I thought this was a joke. I didn't take it seriously. But at the same time, I noticed the coloring of the pen. It was pale blue with a black design on it. And I didn't take in what the design was, but right after that, I woke up. And so being awake, I realized I had the pen. And it was something that had been sent to me, some kind of ad in the mail a few days before. I didn't know where it came from, but I had it. So I looked at it. And the design was different sizes of feather, on black feather on this pale blue background. And when I saw that, the word that came into my head was pluma, which is the Spanish for both feather and pen. Yeah. So I took that as a suggestion that I should tell the dream to Don Alberto. And when I did, he said, "Oh, I'd like you to write a book for me." So that was how it got started.
Wow. And, there's so much to talk with you about. And I just want to say, Shirley, let's just make sure people know how they can get a copy of the book. What is the best way to do that? It's pretty much available everywhere, isn't it?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
From the publisher or from Amazon, or if you have a local bookstore, I like to, people to promote those if they can. So
yeah, and I wanted to talk with you about. There's so many things I'm reminded of now and reflecting upon. And there was a part in the book that I was reading that I too lost my mentor before she could see, not to COVID, but before she could see the fruits of her labor. Yeah. You're progressing when your mentor stops calling you knucklehead. That's how you know. That's how you know that you're progressing. But when we come back from break, I want to talk with you about the power of the Chicana.
Oh yeah. I should say that's I'm wearing a symbol.
I was going to wear mine. I don't have mine on me, but I was going to wear mine. But I saw yours, and I loved that you included it in this book. And I've learned recently, I was given a Chicana by Vera Lopez, and she found out about my South American ancestry, which actually was a big fat secret in my family. Oh. I mean, I'm not kidding, right? But when you're drawn to a culture and you don't know why, where there's smoke, there's fire. And so, but to study the Chicana and to have such a beautiful pendant she gave me with the serpent on it, it's just beautiful. Yeah. The energy of it, though, is powerful. But the lessons I want to hear you talk about. I want to hear you talk about it. You did just beautiful, beautiful job. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Don Alberto's, I say Chicana, I'm probably mispronouncing it. Shirley,
Right.
when we come back, we're gonna dig into this. How will this lead us to the way of abundance and joy? And I really need to emphasize this for those of you that are feeling down a quart.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a feeling. It is not the truth of who you are. But Shirley's going to take you on that when we come back from break. Everybody, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All clear.
Does your life often feel like an emotional tsunami where rogue waves crash down on you, leaving you feeling hopeless and wondering if it will ever end? Do you wish to awaken the dormant strength inside of you? Imagine what it would be like to turn your pain into purpose. Start today by scheduling a complimentary consultation with Martinet. Dive into your healing journey and begin to see your life in a new light. Visit martinetemmons.com and make your appointment today.
Are both your life and mission passing you by? Are you wanting to step into the bigger reason why you're here? I'm Claudia Sam, your soul connection coach and host of the Be Happy Now show. It's possible to feel good to be you and to never burn out again. Hop on a free 20-minute clarity call with me to explore what life could be like if you could just say yes to yourself without the guilt. Go to claudiasamsoulcoaching.com/yes.
Parenting isn't about perfection. I think we all know that. Parenting is about being present and honest, having compassion for your child and for yourself, communicating consciously and loving unconditionally. Tune into the Awakened Parent Project with Susan Dolce every first and third Tuesday at noon Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com. Learn to be an empowered parent through the techniques of the conscious parenting community. To learn more about Susan, visit susandolce.com.
It takes courage to step into your calling and go for your dreams. Sabotage monsters can get in your way, preventing you from reaching your potential. You can choose to struggle alone, or you can choose community and support, someone to walk beside you, meeting you where you are. If you are ready to make real and lasting change, Coach Christine Clark is here for you. Find out more about one-on-one coaching and group programs with Coach Christine at sunglowtransformation.com.
Are you wondering who you are meant to be in this ever-changing world right now? Kelly Kay is a certified new paradigm multidimensional transformation energy healer ready to assist you in this transformative process of expanding your consciousness. She helps you transmute your wounds and traumas into healing, growth, and wisdom, resulting in self-empowerment and freedom from fear. Visit enlightenedmedicine.com to learn more.
Feeling close to the stars.
Y'all ready to come in?
Oh, wow. Welcome back, Shirley. How do we find out more about you? How do we get a copy of the book? And you know, as I was saying to you during the break, I know I zoomed in on the Chicana, but I really want to hear from you, your teaching and your words. So does the public. But the book, it's available pretty much anywhere, right?
Yes.
And how do we find out more about you?
Well, that's a good question because I don't have I don't have a website.
Oh, we're going to have to change that.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I don't feel I'm the important person here. I mean, I want to concentrate on Don Alberto. Yeah,
I know.
And we're trying to fix up his website too. So anyway, that's has its complications. But yes. So yeah, I don't think.
Well, just get the book.
You can look at the book, yes.
Get the book.
there's
that's what I'm saying. Again, I want to shout out to Inner Traditions, our friends there. And we have so many friends in the publishing world, a 20-year experience, and Manzanita and Linda, they get together with Gail, and there we go. Now we get to hear you talk about an amazing journey, an amazing man, and lessons for the traditional as well as the contemporary world we live in, right?
Yeah, right. Yes. Well, in a sense, what he teaches is very traditional, but it's also, he's had influences from the modern world. And one of the things about shamans is, since it's not a written tradition, there's always the opportunity to build on what the tradition was before. And in fact, it's necessary, because you have to bring it into the modern world. It has to be something people can themselves experience. So one of the things that impresses me about him, now, a lot of the time when you see Andean shamans, they are still practicing in a traditional way with traditional forms and clothing. And Don Alberto actually put that on one side, right? He typically would wear a T-shirt, some bright color, orange or green, and khaki slacks. And his whole idea about ritual was that ritual isn't something that's set aside, that you do specially, that actually your whole daily life, in their way of thinking, is a ritual. It's what they call a rurai. So you do it with intention. You do it with an intention to connect with the spirit of life and to increase the well-being of not only your own life, but of the life around you. So that really was the essence of his message. And I would like to just mention about how, when my friend and I visited him for the first time, and he took us on what he said was a pilgrimage. We started off in the car, and he had done just a little ceremony beforehand with a fire, singing prayers in Quechua, which is his language, to the Mother Earth, I'm sure, and a conch shell and so on. However, in the car, what he would do was, if it rained a little bit, he'd open the window, put his hand out and feel the rain. And I'm sure that he was giving thanks. He didn't actually say that out loud at that point. Then he would stop by the side of the road. We would get out. We would look at a flower and give thanks for that. Or we would smell a leaf, give thanks for that. We would visit places that seemed special in the environment and leave an offering. He might give us a breadcrumb or a bread crust to leave, or a sage leaf or something like that. So this was the message, was when you see something around you that you feel drawn to, you can give thanks to it for it. And, if you want to leave something in the environment, you can do that. So that is the essence of his method there. And it's very simple. If you live in a town or the city and you don't have that much contact with the natural world, well, you can buy a plant. Which
I'm from the Bronx, so I know that it doesn't matter where you live. I want to go back over this again for people so they can hear it again, because there's something about the process that you described that, look, when I went on my first vision quest, I still had so much of my upbringing. I mean, my dad poured cement in the backyard, right? Yeah. And so, but what you're talking about, it feels like an infusion of really unlimited energy.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes, I would say so. And this whole idea of energy was new for me. I'm not somebody who easily feels energy, but it's really energy healing.
Yes.
And so I think that is behind what he was saying, is to try and raise your energy level in order to project love outwards, that you have to feel good in order to be able to do that. So he was suggesting, ways of being able to raise that feeling in yourself. So
that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
reason I say that's it is because to hear you tell the story, you're such a beautiful storyteller. You know, there's something about the way that you're bringing this message forward that is completely captivating. And there's an energy in the way you do it. And maybe everybody that's listening maybe they don't get it in the way that I get it, but something touched your heart and soul.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in your eyes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think the first part of the story of his upbringing to me is very interesting. And that he was grew up in a traditional family of shamans, and then his father was killed in front of him deliberately run down by a car, but he was able to get over that, and get to a very beautiful place where he could really share this information with us to further the prophecy they have about the condor, the eagle and the condor flying together in the same sky. And apparently sometimes, he would come to New York City, he would get exhausted when he went home and asked his elders, did he really need to continue to do this? And they said, yes. And he would come back, and he never gave up. And then I was fortunate enough to meet him and have this great experience. So, and I gather that he really wanted his message to be able to be told in English, and I had the chance to do that. So I'm very grateful for that.
And I want to talk a little bit more about this. I want to talk about the energy of abundance for a moment. And I don't think it's a mistake that abundance and joy are both in the title of the book. And these are shamanic teachings, because so often we don't think about abundance, especially in the ways that it has been shown to us. Let me give you a specific example. I grew up in an Italian family. Now I know both Italian and Brazil, but that was the secret. And we grew up as Catholics. And I was always struck by, as a kid, you don't know this word. You don't know abundant and prosperity. But I was always struck by the amount of gold. And remember, I'm in New York, so all the churches in New York are like filled with gold. And there was just a sense in just the presence in that sacred space. And then down the road, I did a little searching on my own, and I found out that people that walked the earth thousands of years ago were quite prosperous. And we don't look at them like that because we have this really odd way that we've indoctrinated poverty and sacrifice with spirituality. But Moses would be a millionaire in today's time, right?
Yeah.
And I was really struck by this. Can you talk about Don Alberto's version of abundance for me?
Well, I think that it was just to enjoy, or be able to enjoy, get yourself to the point, what is all around you, to be able to recognize what's around you. It's a question of awareness, of really being able to, first of all, to pay attention to what's around you and then feel it. Now, as far as paying attention is concerned, I live in a place where I can go for a walk around the top of a hill. And I'm struck by the fact that I very often meet, coming in the other direction, somebody wearing earphones as you are doing, and they're looking down at the road. They're not looking around them. That we have beautiful trees. It's a beautiful place. They're not looking. They're not listening. They're listening to something recorded. Mm-hmm. And that is a complete lack of awareness. They're out in the natural world and they're not seeing it, and they're not feeling it. They're not hearing it. They're not hearing the birds. So it's that kind of thing. So many of us, I think, are absorbed by the technological world that we're kind of mesmerized by it. So I think it's a need to get away from some of that, at least some of the time. So
It's an absolute need. And, you know, as a matter of fact, one of the most happiest workshops I ever delivered, right, for myself was in nature. And, you know, the criteria was that everybody's got rules, Shirley, right? But the rules were I had to deliver this half-day prosperity abundance workshop. And I decided to do it in nature. And I got the best reviews I had ever gotten. But what I had them do, I had them touch the leaves of the tree.
Exactly.
I had them, they could pick whatever that one thing was in nature. They had to bring it back to the circle.
Yes.
And they had to take 30 minutes to describe in detail the entire feeling of it, the essence of it. When you pinch the leaf, what did it look like? You get transformed by nature if you would just take the time.
That's right. Yes. And you know, part of his healing technique was to, well, when you're there in Ecuador, the healer picks the plant that they feel drawn to in order to use it, you know, to go over the body with it.
Yep.
In this country, that's not really so easy. But in his workshops, he would have people bring a flower or a plant with him that he could use. And so the idea was that you have to feel connected to something, and you bring it, and then he can use it to help you. So so I think, you know, I mean, I have not had a whole lot of opportunity to use his techniques, but I am a hands-on healer in my church, and I've come to the conclusion that as long as the person, or what's important is that for the person who's the healee to trust the method, right? It doesn't really matter so much what the method is. The healer can focus, you know, and I say that too because Don Alberto came and stayed with me one time around Christmas time, and I arranged for him to come with me to the church service where I was on the healing team because I wanted him to see what we did. And so when we got there, I hadn't asked, I wasn't sure who was going to be with me working there. And it turned out she was the leader of the team. So she actually said to me, well, would Don Alberto would like to join us? And I was very happy to hear that because I wanted to ask him. And yes, I mean, he was delighted to be asked. He just folded himself in to what we were doing, which was the hands-on healing. He didn't understand anything we said, but it didn't matter. His whole presence was very important, as people told us afterwards. So it's that ability to be able to, I think, cross boundaries as well. That's another important aspect of
well, and that brings me back to the Chicana, if I could, because and let me just talk about this real quick and just tell people why I'm so drawn to it. You know, your book, right? I just want to hold it up. The Way of Abundance and Joy, everybody. You see it? This is so beautifully done and laid out. I mean, not just the teachings behind the eagle and the condor, but when you move from learning or hearing about plant healing and you take a look at conflict, what I found interesting is not just the medicine wheel and the four winds, but then in the same book, a beautiful, very practical that everybody could understand this, Shirley, right? The Chicana and the Staff of Gold. And I want to just talk about this. I'm just going to read this from your book. The Chicana is a tool that our ancestors used to codify the wisdom and scientific knowledge that were developed in their times. The wisdom and scientific knowledge. Now, this is ancient. But I love that we're talking about this. And then you go on to say one of the easiest ways of understanding it, to read this symbol or tool, is to orient oneself to the four directions that we know: north, south, east, and west. And if we look at the Chicana from above, we will see it is a cross with sides of equal length. And you go on to describe this. But the very nature of how you describe it and then go on to talk about it, I had never heard this phrase. Okay, and I'd love for you to comment on this. The Chicana, to be best understood intellectually, has to be seen in all its dimensions.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a powerful,
Yeah.
powerful symbol. What was it? And then you go on to describe various versions of it. But what does it come to mean to you, Shirley, at a personal level?
Yeah. Okay, those actually are his words.
Yes.
That he spoke to me. It was an interview I had with him. Well, it's really, to me, it's more of a mystical vision, because you try to see something in multiple dimensions. How do you do this? But I think it sums up, the whole universe. It's just well, to me, I think it sums up everything that he teaches there, everything that we experience, everything one can know about the stars, or anything else. It's a way of connecting everything in the world together. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it's also a symbol of the depth of their thinking. Now, one of the comments that he made was that there are people who are interested in Indian things who don't think that they have any philosophy, right? And this is really a deep kind of very complex philosophy, in fact. One of the valuable things about it to me is that he would use not the term universe, but a pairverse. In other words, there are two principles that are equally important, and it's not just the male, it's also the female, and that the female is in fact more important than the male in his view. So that he sees at the moment we're in a time he calls a Pachacuti, which is the world turning over, and we're leaving 500 years of male domination and coming into, hopefully, another 500 years where female energy rises. And it's not just women, it's female energy in the male, which is taking us into a much kinder, nicer universe. So
I love it. I don't know why I stopped asking myself the why question. I don't know what year that was. Maybe it was 1969. I don't know. Maybe it was at Woodstock in 69, maybe. Because it didn't help me.
Yeah.
It didn't help me. And what you're bringing forth is an invitation through Don Alberto for all of us to not just read about it, but to take it in.
Yes.
And to take it in action in the way we live our lives. Is that an adequate representation?
Very, very good. Yes. And he was always a little bit frustrated because he felt he had difficulty teaching people how to do this. Because in fact, it's very simple, but you just have to want to do it. You have to be aware of what's around you and see what you notice, see what you feel drawn to. That's really what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I found, since I've felt more connected with the environment here, that my mood has gone up. I mean, I'm not somebody who tends to be depressed anyway, but the situation at the present time is depressing, and but I don't feel that way at the moment. I feel, I feel up, I guess I could say. Yeah.
I like that. Right. I like that. I like that because, look, I know what it's like to not feel up. I think maybe you do too, a little bit.
Yeah.
And when we can learn that there is a choice we have, most of the time, there are exceptions where people have some physical things. My mom committed suicide. And in her case, there was a whole lot that she needed some help with. And back then, you didn't really get the help. But I would love to know, given everything you've put in the book, you're doing these interviews, right? You're out there, you're sharing this message. I'd love to know your vision. I'd love to know, everybody's got a copy of the book. Everyone is reading the book. Take us on now, our own visualization of what your desire would be for those people being touched by what you were touched by.
Yeah. Well, I just think that they are able to stay in a higher mood than they might be in otherwise, that they're not as pulled down by the things that happen that are not great, as is the case now. And that they find a kind of joy. I mean, it's a sort of a low key but very deep kind of joy, just for to being alive and being able to appreciate that fact, that really the spirit of life is throughout everything in our world, and we're a part of it. We tend to separate ourselves, but we're really not separate. And as far as the natural world is concerned, it has been polluted and so on and so forth in the past, and hopefully, if I can feel better connected to it, then these things can be eased and turned around in the future. So it's just to live in a happier way, a more connected way, I would say. And I think I will add that I'm somebody who's always been very much of an introvert. I've never been much of a people person. And so here I am now, and I feel this book is going to reach a number of people. And so I'm happy about that, that this is a sort of a new direction for me too.
Yeah, I love this. I love understanding, and through your words and through your inspiration, and certainly through what you're bringing forth in the message from Don Alberto, is this idea that, one, it's never too late, right?
Yeah.
Two, as you so beautifully stated, that we are here to be connected. In your book, you connect us with nature, with plants, with animals, with people. We are here to be connected. And that we cannot lose sight how important that connection is. I don't care if we've got our phones going, or, I have to wear a headset or else the sound is not good. But honestly, if I could figure out a way not to have this thing on, boy, I'm right on it. But the other thing is, you're also reminding us of a sacred journey, I believe. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he sort of introduced me to that idea right at the beginning by taking my friend and me on this pilgrimage, as he described it. Yes. So, I haven't said anything about what happened when I first met him and getting this kind of laser light from his eyes to mine, and then I really wanted to know what that was, and I ended up going to Ecuador with this lady who wanted more healing. And then I finally got a chance to ask him, and he said, well, it was a signal. And I said, what kind of a signal? And he said, well, I've known you in previous lives. And that really knocked me backwards, because, previous lives are not part of my cultural background in any way, whatever. So that just intrigued me, and I felt there was a whole new world of things for me to learn and know about there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't thank you enough. I mean, there's so much we can continue to talk about. I shared the other day that I believe my life was saved by another winged creature in the high desert. Wasn't an eagle, it was a turkey vulture, but it helped me. I was lost in the high desert because I didn't follow my mentor's instruction, and wandered too far away. And I did remember her teaching, take your clothes off, lay on the sand, let your heart touch the earth, and you will be guided. I'm not telling everybody to take your clothes off. Don't be emailing me on that. But there's something important about all of us connecting to the earth, isn't there, Shirley?
Yes, and Dr. Don Alberto would say to me, you should take your shoes off and sit with your feet on the ground. And I haven't really done that as much as I could or should. And another thing, about him was he would come back exhausted from being in New York City, and he would dig a trench in the ground and line it and cover himself up with the earth and stay there for the night, and it would be restorative for him, right? So there's, that kind of connection with the earth. I can't say I have, but it's really kind of inspirational to me that this is something one can try.
I love it. I can't thank you enough. I want to know, I think I've got 30 seconds left. Personal message. What do you want to leave us with, please?
Well, I think just enjoy the book, and also don't beat up on yourself. If you feel you've failed in any way, just relax and try to, learn from what he teaches. And when you remember to do something, as he would say, when you remember to do it, but don't worry about it.